Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our special discussion podcast for the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and today I'm joined by Mr. Jakejames Lugo. How's it going, Mr. Lugo?
I'm doing good, Rich. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Battlefront. I've got a chance to explore it. I think out of everybody thus far, because I know I played at 83. Did you get to play at 83 or no?
Oh no, I wish I could have played it at E3, but unfortunately, I know I was actually flying in the exact same day that that EA Play event happened, so I didn't make it there.
So I think I played it just a hair bit more than just about everybody else that we know. But I've been spending a lot of time with the beta and just messing around with it, because obviously I'm a big Star Wars fan. You're a big Star Wars fan as well, I would assume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know having a bit of audio issues on your end, but I will just I'll just let everybody know that today you'll be Darth Vader.
Yeah, I'm the Lord of the Sith right now.
But yeah, no, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I did get a chance to play the first game. The only complaint I had about the first game is that it just felt like because it was only multiplayer, there wasn't that much. So obviously, definitely was a lot more different with this experience. But let's go ahead and let's just pretty much get into that discussion. First and foremost, I did want to ask, what were your overall first impressions of the beta compared to what you played at during EA Play?
So the biggest thing that I got from EA Play, and even now in the beta, that it's known fact now, is that the classes really changed up the dynamic of the game ever since Battlefront 1. That was one of the biggest complaints that people had for the first EA Star Wars Battlefront, was that the classes from the original games were gone. They brought them back now, and I think it really changes up the ebbs and the flows and the way that you go about playing the game overall. One of the biggest things that I will say that was a little bit annoying before we get into like a lot of the really bigger stuff about the beta that we noticed, or like what people have talked about already, I feel like it's a lot easier to kind of get killed in this game, more so than the previous game. I don't know what it is exactly, but I feel like it's a tiny bit harder to kill certain enemies, especially when you're going up against the droid army. I know I'm not the only one that's made that complaint, where it's a little bit harder to get headshots or just to even kill people on the opposing team when you're playing as the Republic and you're trying to kill droids. That could get a little bit annoying. But overall, I just find again, the ebbs and flows of the game is it feels like you could die easier in this game than you could in the previous game.
I see what you mean. Yeah, the matches that I played, yeah, it was a little difficult, but it was still. I mean, it's really fun. When I did play the first couple matches, yeah, I didn't have any issues. I was able to get a lot of kills, and at the same time, I got killed a lot. But it seemed like it was pretty balanced. But it did get some of what you mentioned in particular. It definitely was a bit challenging, but man, still was fun for the most part. But yeah,
Now, let me ask you this though, Rich. Like, did you find yourself getting into a lot of games? Because it took me some time in between games to actually get matched up with other groups. Like, there were certain modes that were in the beta that I couldn't play because we never had enough people. I think it was like the big 20 on 20 battles, like a couple times where I would just be there in matchmaking because there wasn't enough people on the beta to play it. So that was a little bit annoying for me. But then some of the other matches, the different types of like objective-based modes that they had in the beta, I was totally fine with that.
Yeah, well, I didn't really get to try any of the. I mean, I didn't get a chance to try the massive battles. I did a lot of the smaller missions, pretty much all the stuff that John Bodea talked about in the overview video. I did a lot of that stuff, but I didn't really get into like the huge, like you said, the 20 player matchups. So I'm not really sure, but I know when I tried to get into the main ones they spoke about, I didn't have any issues getting into those. That was pretty quick. Now I probably should mention that I didn't play the beta as soon as it came out. It took a while to download on PlayStation 4, so I don't know if it was a lot harder in the beginning and it got a little bit better, or I'm not really sure about that. But when I started, I also played at different times. typically a lot later in the evening. So I don't really know if that had anything to do with it also.
I think it was the inverse of that for me, because when I first started out, there was a lot of people jumping on it because everybody was talking about it, was fresh. And then over time, you start to see people just get away from that. Because keep in mind, this beta is coming out around the same time, or came out around the same time, where people are still playing Destiny 2, still playing Overwatch. There's a bunch of other games that came out recently. Shadow of War came out not too long ago. And then we got some other releases. So it was just a weird time when the beta came out. So it was just, as time went on, more and more people dropped off from it.
Yeah, I think I definitely understand that, because I feel like you pretty much had enough time to see all that it had to offer. One thing I did want to say is I did like how they laid out what was in the beta. I think for a typical beta, normally we're just expecting the multiplayer, but they gave you enough just to show if there was anybody who didn't really know what was included in the actual Star Wars Battlefront 2 game. I think they got a very good idea of it just by looking at the overview video they had and then getting a chance to try some things in the beta. So I think they did a good job with that. I do commend them on that at the very least. Yeah, it definitely has more content than the last game, and I think that's
Definitely.
That's a very, very good thing, because again, the fact that the first game that we didn't have a single player story, for some people that probably won't really matter that much, but to me it does matter, because they actually really tried to make a great story this time around.
I wish they had a level or a mission to play in the beta of the story, just because looking at the little kind of like little montage movie that they had, the little teaser trailer for it, I would have rather just give me a mission. Just let me see how those missions are going to flow throughout the story, and then I'll just be ready to play it like when it comes out. I think that they're doing that because they don't want to spoil any story elements. That makes sense to me. I can understand that, but I wish that there was a little bit more. I also think, and we'll get into it in a little bit, because there's a couple of things I want to touch on, that also the word of mouth about the beta and about specifically the star card stuff is probably also what killed off a lot of people playing it, and what turned off a lot of people, which we'll get into in just a second. But I want to ask you, the space combat, the vehicle combat, did you like it? I think it's just as good, if not better, than the last game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know they have multiple teams working on different things. I believe I want to make sure I get the name. I believe that Motive is working on the single player story.
Dice is doing the ground combat.
Yeah. So I think that was a wise decision, because then you don't have to worry about stretching one team thin trying to do multiple things. But yeah, all of that combat is fantastic. Definitely feels a lot more improved. And even with the ground combat, I know when I played the last game, I enjoyed that. I pretty much enjoyed a lot of those things with the last game, and so it does feel a lot better so far. As you did say, we will get into the.
There was one thing that I kind of had a little nitpick with the vehicles, and that's when you're on the ground, when you're in the ground combat, like when we were on Naboo and stuff, and you would get the perks for the different vehicles that you could fly in the air, in the atmosphere. I feel those, they were a little bit not as exciting as when you actually go into space, because obviously space combat's a totally different beast compared to what you're dealing with there. But every time I would go into a vehicle in some of the different matchups, after I would get enough points to generate like an X-wing or an A-wing or whatever else, it would be a little bit tough to shoot at the ground towards other players or other enemies on the ground there. I think that's purposely done, because most of the time I was just flying around aimlessly, and either I was shooting at the objective that I had to destroy, or I was shooting at maybe one other player that was able to unlock one of the vehicles in the air. But again, possibly because it's the beta, maybe that's why it was so kind of not as exciting as the rest of the stuff. But either way, that was like my only one nitpick with it. As far as controls for the vehicles, I think they were great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, the decision to have teams specifically worried about this stuff that was a great move by EA. It shows, that they really do look at this as being an important game, so they want to try to get a lot of things right, because the last game did have criticisms. So yeah, definitely a better experience in those regards. But hey, I understand the some of the issues with the vehicles. I totally understand that because you know it's some stuff is still not. I mean, I don't really know if they're going to make any additional changes to any of that stuff.
I doubt it. It's like right around the corner. There's not much that could be changed right now, save for the Star Card stuff we're going to talk about now. But as far as like a core game, from what we've seen in this beta, I think that this is it. I think this is what we're going to get. And then now, when the game comes out, what's really going to be telling is how good that single player story campaign is.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I have a lot of faith that that story, that single player story campaign is going to be great because
it's written by Mitch Dyer. I know that. We know Mitch Dyer. He was over there. He wrote he was at least co-wrote some of the stuff that's going on with the story in that game.
Yeah, and you know, anyone that has ever played Spec Ops: The Line, they already know that the writer behind that does a very good job. So I'm very curious to see how that collaboration works. But you know, just the fact that there is more content other than the multiplayer is a great thing. But yeah, we'll see about that. So you mentioned this star cards controversy. So we need to talk about, because the thing with this is that I only really glanced over it. I didn't really have a chance to really see it take full effect in the actual beta. So maybe you have had a different experience with it and you can describe what the issue is with it.
Yeah, so here's the thing with the star cards. It's a multifaceted, complex issue. On one hand, I totally understand where everybody's coming from, and I agree with a lot of what's being said. The reason being is because what really, in essence, what they've done with the star card system is that they made player progression based on loot boxes, based on RNG, and based on luck. And the thing about it is that in order to progress your skills that you get, because the star cards are basically equipable skills that you get for each one of your classes, and you can unlock a variety of different ones that have multiple tiers to them. So they have bronze tier, which is like the lowest of the low. Then they have a gold tier, which is like level 4 or whatever. As you begin to play more and you get multiple cards in order to fuse them to make stronger versions of them. That is cool to a point. But when it becomes like the central basis for the player progression and the means of what it's really going to dictate how matches go and how they, you know, go back and forth and such, that's a problem. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting caught up on. And I think that also, when people started talking about that, specifically like Jim Sterling and a few other people, that's when a lot of people started to drop off from the beta. Even though, in essence, I think everybody still likes the game, you know, at its heart, but that's a real big turnoff for a lot of people. I think that when everybody gets this game eventually on release, they're going to play it mostly for the single player, and they're going to be very turned off by the multiplayer because of this. Now, one of the biggest issues that I find with it, and like I mentioned before, is the random factor to it, the RNG factor to it, because you have to constantly buy those crates, those star car crates, which are basically loot boxes, and hope that you get the skills and stuff that you need, because you're going to get stuff that you don't need for a lot of classes that maybe you don't play as much of, or also heroes, which is a whole other thing we didn't really touch on, but basically heroes have their own like set of skills. One of the biggest ones that people are making a big deal about is with Boba Fett. Now, Boba Fett's one of his skills is that whenever he fires a rocket in the air, he's invincible. Like when he uses his little rocket jetpack, he fires a torpedo missile at somebody, he's invincible for a short period of time. One of the star cards that gives him that ability, if you max it up, he gets like 40 seconds or like a long time period of invincibility. And that could be a real problem when you're playing online and you get Boba Fett and people start using him and start overly abusing him. That could be a real big deal and can really turn the tide of some matches. Or at least that's the fear right now. We don't really know per se because we haven't seen people get those types of abilities all the way up to max just yet because the game's not officially out. So that I feel like they can maybe adjust some stuff. I don't think they are. I don't think they really care as much to that point as much as people are complaining about it. I think that a lot of it, EA and other companies are looking at the loot box business model for a variety of different games, not just Battlefront, but like Shadow of War, Overwatch, and a few other games. And they're seeing that that clearly works. That clearly has an addictive factor to it that causes people to really dive into it. And I'm not just talking about playing the game so long that you get a bunch of crates. I mean, like people actually buying into it. So some people have argued that Battlefront 2 might be pay to win. We're not very sure yet because, again, the game's not officially out. But I could see and can understand where the fears are coming from. And I partially agree with them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, yeah, all great points that were made. The thing is that EA they are fully aware of the situation because I know that Well, I know that I received the email yesterday. I believe everyone received the email yesterday that said they thanked everybody for the feedback and that they was going to look into this star card situation because they saw
like really are they really going to look at it now at this point so late in the game? I mean, all of this, if you really think about it, all of it is just about figured out. The game comes out in like a couple weeks. It's like right around the corner, so they can only do so much. Like that would be like super crunch time if they really wanted to overhaul a lot of the stuff. Maybe they adjust some of the percentages and some of the mechanics of the abilities, or give like the conditions and stuff. I could see that. But I think this is what we're getting. And I think that when it comes out on release, people are going to complain about it. And then maybe in future patches, stuff will change up afterwards, like long after release, because maybe like after The Last Jedi and stuff comes out. Because remember, that also is supposed to be another batch of content that comes around December after the game comes out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they could easily do the patches later to add in some more stuff for people. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that situation. And I do, again, there is no season pass that people are paying for, so they're going to definitely pay one way or another for something. So
So let me ask you this, Rich: do you think that star card controversy, or the way that people are reacting to the star cards and the crates, the loot boxes, quote unquote, do you think that's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people?
I think, well, yeah, I think it definitely is, because the messaging.
See, I don't think so, to be honest with you.
Oh, you don't think so?
I don't think so, because it's Star Wars. Because the branding and the name is so powerful as far as how it affects people and how people are so down and in for anything Star Wars. I don't think it's going to matter to the majority of people. I mean, we're gonna see blogs, we're gonna see posts and articles written about it. It says that it's predatory, says that it's bad, it's pay to win and stuff. I don't think people are really going to care that bad. In essence, because clearly, if that wasn't the case, the EA and a lot of other companies, because remember, there was a report that came out not too long ago that showed numbers for how much people spend on like loot boxes or extra crates that they could buy into stuff. So I don't think people are really going to care. I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Oh, well, yeah, the people that are the diehard Star Wars fans, they're going to get the game no matter what. I think what I will say, though, is the first impressions, and the fact that all the negative word got out about the star cards, it may make some people hesitant to get it right, at launch.
No, I don't think so. I don't agree.
You don't think so at all?
I think it's also because of the campaign, the single player campaign. I think that right there is what everybody has their eyes on, that they're waiting to see if it's actually good. I think that you're going to see a lot of people talking really good about it. I have a strong feeling when it comes out, and that's what really is going to pull people into that game. Besides the multiplayer and whatever else comes along with it, like the co-op stuff, which is a whole other aspect I didn't even really get to explore with the beta. I don't even know if it was really included as much with the beta as far as like the co-op missions. But I think the deal breaker, whether it's good or bad, is going to be the single player campaign.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Star Wars. People are huge Star Wars fans. You have the new movie coming out, so yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be picking it up anyway. But we'll see what their plans are long term for this star card stuff moving forward. But yeah, other than that, was there anything else that you wanted to say on the beta that we didn't touch on yet?
No, I think we covered it. Again, I'm still excited for the game because, again, I'm a Star Wars fan. And we're going to have a review of Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the website eventually. We're going to talk about it on the co-op eventually as well after release. It's going to be a big topic of discussion. I think it's going to be cool. And, again, we have all that extra content that's going to come with it down the line leading up to The Last Jedi's release and then afterwards, whatever comes after that. So I think it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. I think this is going to be an interesting game, to say the least. Like I said, like other people, myself included, I think that, really the single player campaign is really going to be the thing that people talk about the most.
Oh yeah, rightfully so. Rightfully so. They definitely should. Yeah. So we're definitely going to be looking forward to that. Yeah, it'll be out, I believe, November 17th. So about a month from now. Yeah. So stay tuned for more of our thoughts on Star Wars Battlefront 2. And I did want to give a shout out to EA for allowing us to actually try out the beta, because we did get to try it out before it became open to everybody. So shout outs to EA, and definitely look forward to tomorrow's co-op. It's going to be a very interesting show. So
Definitely.
have a good rest of the day, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Peace out, people.